Welcome to Orchestrating Outcomes, a video series brought to you by TraceLink that explores the challenges and opportunities of supply chain digitalization. We feature insights from industry leaders across the pharmaceutical supply chain. My name is Henry Ames, and I'm responsible for our logistics orchestration here at TraceLink. And I am very excited today to have the CEO of Medigi, Blake Powers. Welcome, Blake.
Very happy to be here. Thanks for having me on the pod.
Great. We're happy to have you. So first, Blake, thanks for taking time out of your schedule, of course. And as we've prepared for today's discussion, I want to thank you for the time you offered to help me better understand really the details around the changing landscape of drug distribution, which, of course, we're going to delve into for our listeners. But before we begin, I see your Florida State University coffee mug over your left shoulder there. For our listeners, we both went to Florida State, and I know we both participated in the Entrepreneurship and Small Business Management program, the ESBM program. It was a fantastic program there at Florida State. I had a great time.
Oh, yes, I remember. Well. Dr. Osteryoung was leading the program when I was there, and I did a double major in finance and entrepreneurship. It was so hands-on. I mean, what a wonderful college of business. And, I'm proud to be a Seminole. I have not blurred my background despite the season we may have had last year. But, it's only up from here. And I'm confident Mike Norvell and the boys are coming back in the fall.
Well, that's great. Well, of course, when I was there, it was with Bobby Bowden and a lot of other very talented individuals. So it's a great place to be. So, you've spent your entire professional career in the healthcare and life sciences space. And reviewing your background, you spent time as a pharmacy technician. You've spent time in the drug compounding and the home infusion market. And of course, you're now the CEO of Medigi. So just to level set for our audience, could we take a step back and talk about sort of the origin of Medigi? And not to steal your thunder, I know it started as Med Shorts and your vision for helping provide really a seamless web-based channel for enabling the sale of short-dated product. But sticking with that entrepreneurial theme, could you share with us a little bit about how did you come up with the idea for Med Shorts and how has it evolved into Medigi?
Sure. I mean, I remember 25 years ago was my first job in the healthcare space, and again, I was a shipping specialist and excited to come into a pharmacy. My father and I ran a home infusion pharmacy for 25 years. And so as a 15-year-old, this was a summer job I had. I was so excited to get into the lab, yet part of the hazing and initiation process was not actually the work on preparing medications and whatnot. I was sent to an air conditionless storage unit to search through patient files via an audit that we had with the PBM, right? So that was kind of my first introduction to healthcare, is that it's not as glamorous as you might think it is on TV, or it's not always so, patient driven and patient specific and therapy specific. So there's a lot of intangibles that coincide with integrating all the ins and outs of healthcare. So I had to dig through storage units and files and make sure that that paperwork was set. Now today it's much different, right? So much of it is digitized and automated. And to your comment earlier, Henry, you can't help but admire what tech has done for other industries. Take a Priceline.com. 25 years ago, Priceline.com just took the airline industry by storm, right? They saw a problem worth solving. You have the masterminds like a Jeff Hoffman and a Jay Walker, right? These entrepreneurs and these engineers that are so cutting edge. And how did they come up with this kind of technology for an airline industry, or Uber for the ride sharing? We couldn't help but dream back when we owned a pharmacy that, man, maybe one day there'll be a tech company that will serve our needs like others have done in various spaces.
So from a Med Shorts to a Medigi perspective, I mean, you identified this opportunity to focus on short-dated product, and then you evolved the business into product categories well beyond that, correct?
Exactly. So after we sold the brick and mortar pharmacy about 10 years ago, we just started asking questions and coming in with an open, curious mind. And it really led us down the path of probably one of the more neglected spaces in the supply chain. And that was short dated medication, right? This is inventory that is existing inside the warehouse or maybe the third party logistics provider of a pharma company. And it really didn't have an easy outlet into either hospitals or pharmacies and ultimately to patients. And so in providing a shortcut for pharmacies to source directly from manufacturers these short dated medications, that double entendre and brand MedShorts was born.
So when you look at the steps it took to get product to market, I mean, how did you help streamline that process through Medigi?
Yeah, so that was interesting when we were observing and really learning from pharma companies. Okay, direct distribution is nothing new. This is something that they had been doing from really the beginning of time. And it wasn't until the 90s and early thousands that it really just took such a dominant position in the supply chain. And with direct distribution, we counted sometimes upwards of 25 manual steps that were involved in getting the product listed, the facility credentialed, the right approvals from pricing, PO generation, the shipment of it, the receipt of the product. And we're able to shave all that down into about 4 or 5 easy steps. So really, again, implementing these modern solutions and the modern tech to a process that's been around for a while, but how is it streamlined? And so what we noticed is that, yes, the natural place to start was maybe these short dated products, but it really didn't supply enough consistency for pharmacy procurement teams. And manufacturers kept asking us the question, well, this is great what you're doing with my surplus, but you have a new product launch coming up in Q3. Can you help us with this new launch, right? This is something where it's a free market exchange. The tech is making it easier on our team. And so we decided to remove the governor. And in 2023, we did a rebrand to Medigi because we wanted the manufacturers and the healthcare providers to begin to think a little bit differently, to think a little bit bigger about what tech and this platform can do for them.
I love that. What I'm hearing from you is the sort of adoption and investment in digital technologies to help streamline that flow of goods, enabling this more sort of direct distribution model. I want to maybe step back just a little bit, and when based on my research for today, the average pharmaceutical manufacturer pays somewhere around 40% of gross revenue on rebates, distribution fees, patient support. And when I dug even deeper, smaller, maybe even more specialty related products may pay even upwards of 50%. So when we think about, and even looking at today's model, I mean, you're seeing Lilly Direct, you're seeing Pfizer for All, which is another direct to patient program. And of course, Novo Nordisk has recently launched NovoCare. That was just, I believe, launched on March 5th, where they're offering Wegovy Direct. So you're seeing these drug manufacturers offering direct distribution models to patients, but you're also seeing new entrepreneurial ventures like Medigi evolve over a number of years towards this direct distribution model, direct to hospital networks, pharmacies, and clinics, and that type of thing. So can you help our listeners understand kind of what's driving drug manufacturers to implement these direct distribution models? Where do these programs make sense and why?
Yeah, and I do want to disclose that Medigi is not here to replace or displace the full line wholesalers, and the current incumbent players play a very special role in the supply chain. And again, this direct distribution may not be for every single product in the portfolio, right? These are products that are maybe just, plagued with stockouts, or their healthcare providers just having trouble getting access through the normal channels. They just want to make sure their portfolio is available. So while, yes, sometimes the economics can drive the decision, you talked about channel fees increasing. I think it's been about 3 to 5 fold over the last 5 years. The gross to net pressure on manufacturers is only heightening, and it's only becoming more painful for them. Their R&D is really hinged around creating modern therapies and breakthrough technologies in the treatment space. They don't always put the same kind of thought to the commercialization of the product. And I think a lot of chief commercial officers at pharma companies are getting tired of, the complaints, and they're wanting to take some action with it, right? And so again, for selected products where it makes sense, and in particular spaces and sites of care, direct distribution is gaining traction. Specialty light is a great example, where about 50% of the specialty light orders are going direct. They know their defined audience. The user experience is improved from the healthcare providers. The field reps can easily point them to a solution where they can see inventory, their custom price that's available, and ultimately just have a click and buy, type of scenario, instead of volleys back and forth on emails, phone calls, and the trials and tribulations of the contracting departments, right, between big health systems and pharma companies. There's tech out there, not just ours, but others that are out there too, that just make it so much easier. And at the end of the day, it's benefiting the source manufacturers, it's benefiting the healthcare providers, and ultimately the patients with better access and care at an affordable price.
And you mentioned the specialty light category, and obviously preparation for today. I mean, when I looked up specialty light, it looked like it was product categories that generally were fairly expensive, somewhere between maybe $600 a month to $2,400 a month. Quite often required some specialty care in terms of the storage, handling, or distribution. Maybe it was cold chain product, and also required more skilled sort of pharmacist skill sets to administer the product and or manage any potential adverse reactions with the product itself. So these drugs tend to follow more unique distribution models. Is that correct?
Yeah, they certainly do, right? There's often qualifications that healthcare systems and healthcare providers need to meet prior to even having access to these products. And there's data that needs to be routed back and forth, from the provider to the manufacturer. So yes, that's certainly one that is growing in need for direct distribution. Now, I want to make a clarification point, Henry. You brought up about Lilly and Pfizer Direct and Pfizer for All. Our focus is really in the healthcare provider space. So we are B2B from the manufacturer to various health. Now, it could be an independent retail pharmacy. It could be a hospital pharmacy, a cancer center, a physician's office. But we are not that end-to-end solution for the patient care. I think there's other players that are kind of serving that space. We're really, locked in and focused on how do we make sure healthcare providers get the treatments they need in a modern, digitalized kind of format.
Okay, so that's helpful. So Medigi is purely B2B, and what you're saying, or what I'm hearing from you, is this sort of changing economic landscape is encouraging some drug manufacturers to look for alternate channels depending on certain types of product categories.
Well, and if you think about launching a new product, you can do a lot of research in advance. You can do as many focus groups as you want. But when you launch a drug, you also want to be close to the healthcare providers using it. Is the syringe really, working with these vials, right? Is the label able to scan? Is the color really the best? If you're going to make any adjustments, you want to make those adjustments in your soft launch. And so I think a lot of other manufacturers are kind of saying, well, if we're going to debut in the market, why not a soft launch debut via direct channel? Because we get this nice tight 360 loop and feedback from the very healthcare providers that are either going to be promoting and pushing this product forward, or they're the very ones that can stall it, that, hey, look, it is twice as hard to administer the product, or, the price isn't going to work out for me, or the labeling or size of it doesn't fit in our crash carts. There's all these little idiosyncrasies. And what direct distribution provides is kind of that really close ear to the ground. It amplifies the field force, with those kind of bits of information and feedback from their customers. Through the traditional channels, sometimes there's an insulation there that sometimes you don't find out till it's too late. You've already ramped up production and, it's off to the races with, the original playbook, but sometimes you need to really adjust and modify based on the user feedback from the onset. So I think that's kind of another angle to it as well.
Yeah, that's so interesting. So what I hear you saying is the Medigis of the world really help provide and facilitate that flow of information, not only downstream in terms of education to the pharmacists themselves, but also back upstream to the manufacturer in terms of feedback from the market.
Yes,
Is that fair?
That is dead on. Absolutely.
Well, this podcast, as those of our listeners know, would not be complete if we didn't touch on AI. So I'm going to put you on the spot here a little bit. So when you think about the future of Medigi and the needs of your customers, sort of what elements of AI do you think might play a role as your community evolves? How do you envision AI enhancing the services provided by Medigi?
Yeah, well, AI is certainly a force multiplier. And we've always had the mantra of when in doubt, if possible, let's automate. And AI we see as just another tool in our belt for that purpose, right? For automation. Some examples, right? As an e-com shop, the attributes of the product are so important. And we used to rely on the manufacturers uploading the package inserts, the photo of the vials and the product itself. And we had a rather miserable upload rate with photos, right? It was maybe like 35, 40%. And we started using AI to cross-reference third-party databases with the indices listed to ensure accuracy and to ensure that all of the attributes, including the photo attributes, are being listed with the product. That way, if a pharmacist is thinking to convert from one to another, they can get the full picture ahead of time, quite literally, right? And so with AI being cross-referencing all the different photo recognitions, we have a 95% photo population rate now. And it was just incredible, more than doubled it, right, overnight. Another example was shipment tracking, right? It comes from various carriers and sometimes the manufacturers are emailing this so it's coming from different avenues and mediums and different formats. AI has been able to ingest it all, format it in a standard way, and then upload it to the portal itself. So we are actually leveraging AI to increase the efficiency of our own operations, to increase the efficiency from the manufacturer side, and improve that user experience from the pharmacy and healthcare provider side. And as a smaller company, we have 26 employees. You know, unlike these maybe larger organizations where there could be some fear that, you know, is AI here to take my job? You know, we've really seen the opposite here, Henry, where it's like, you know what? AI can take care of the mundane, boring, repetitive tasks that we have, right? It can kind of elevate me to do higher, better, more exciting things for the industry. So we've certainly welcomed it, you know, but we see it's just the beginning. As we continue to grow and our community continues to grow, our data sets get larger, we can serve AI up in just an endless amount of creative ways that's, you know, suggesting new products, alternatives, and really just kind of being that prompt to healthcare buyers and our own account managers, you know, to make sure we're making all the right decisions. We're not, you know, missing any blind spots. And, you know, at the end of the day, that kind of on the ground work is really being covered where it can be automated.
Well, I'm glad to hear that the relationships aren't going away and that AI is not going to take my job tomorrow. So,
you know, I think that's a common, and by the way, this is just my humble prediction, but I actually think the relationships are going to be more important because everyone's getting inundated with AI, right? It's almost like you don't even trust an email anymore, right? Was this written by artificial intelligence? You know, before a hospital is going to commit to a new vendor relationship, they want to look somebody in the eyes and kind of say, all right, is this really right for me? Like, I understand the research, you know, the case study behind it, but they want that relationship. I don't see that going away, at least in the near future. Like, in fact, I think it's, for our company, it's enabling us to cover more ground than we ever had. So that's how we're looking at it from the positive lens.
So it's driving internal efficiencies, it's driving accuracy, it's driving a higher quality customer service experience for the Medigi customers, is what I'm hearing you say.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And it's like we can do more with less, you know, and, you know, what used to what used to take maybe an hour, to reformat a file and get it in the right way. We had people doing that at times. Now it's AI automation can say, all right, here's how the file needs to be formatted. Boom, it's uploaded. So we kind of have it as our own like personal assistants, research assistants, and the agents that we're building are only, making us just sharper, leaner, and smarter.
I love it. I love it. Okay, well, if you stick with me here, I want to take maybe a step towards the operational activities of Medigi. And I know you don't, Medigi's not a middleman. You're not buying product. You're not reselling product. You're really operating as a digital conduit to help improve the flow of goods through the supply chain. When you think about that order processing activity, could you talk us through kind of, or I guess, order processing and order fulfillment? When you think about that, can you walk us through kind of that distribution model and what elements of data are most important for Medigi, and how do you manage that flow of information?
I'd be happy to, Henry. And then to the first point, though, often people hear about us and they roll their eyes and like, great, just what we need is another intermediary, another middleman. And I do take issue to the connotation of middleman, because that implies that you're buying at X and selling at Y. And again, we are tech enablement for pharma. So at the end of the day, and I think it really defines itself when you understand the ordering process, it starts with the manufacturer, right? They are contracted with Medigi, and they have their own portal where they see their own portfolios, right? And they can manage what's listed. They have control of the price downstream. Think of how important that is in the climate that we're in now. The tariffs just passed. What am I going to do? Just take the COGS, the additional COGS as a manufacturer, and again, be the victim here? Or you know what? I might have to make some adjustments. If there's abundance, I might have to taper the price down. If there's scarcity, I might have to taper it up. So each manufacturer really gets the benefit of their own portal. They're in the driver's seat of their own products. And we serve as the limited billing agent and the tech host, right? So at the end of the day, that's really what we do for them. And so the product starts with their authorized users listing availability in stock. They can price it by shelf life. They can enable it for bid, where they're inviting pharmacy buyers to actually make a bid with a volume discount. They can schedule orders, and they really have it all at their fingertips. And so whenever that product is discovered by a healthcare provider, a pharmacy, procurement professional, they can find 5 products from 5 different manufacturers and check out in one shopping cart and one consolidated invoice. And so that product will ship directly from the manufacturer's warehouse, or perhaps their 3PL, but it's in the title of the manufacturer most often, right? Medigi is 100% virtual. We never touch or possess the product. But when that product ships to maybe an academic university, the ship to and sold to party would equal that academic university. We are the bill to party in the arrangement. So that's kind of the mechanics of how the product makes it there. It goes directly from point A, the manufacturer warehouse, to point B, the academic medical center that's ordering it. Now, we do have parent-child relationships on Medigi, right? That's part of the sophistication of the build. Our architect engineer is a eBay, PayPal alum, and he made sure that, hey, let's build this the right way for enterprise sales. And we know that these are large health systems that could have 20, 30, 50 different locations. So you can drop down. It is designed for these large systems where they can drop down by site of care where they want to buy from. Because if it's a cold chain product, it'll have to go directly to that site of care actually dispensing the product. Or if it's a C2, much the same. But most of the healthcare systems are kind of deploying a centralized model, which really works well with a marketplace like this, because they can leverage the volume. Maybe they're able to buy a whole pallet from a manufacturer and lean in and get an even more attractive price. So that's how the product makes it through the supply chain there. It is really direct from manufacturer to that ordering site of care. We track it along the way by shipping carrier technology. So the moment it arrives, Henry, if you're ordering the product at this academic medical center, you'll see that on Friday the 4th, this product arrived at 2:30 in the afternoon. And so you're notified via email, the portal notifies you. And again, you're in lockstep and in tune with that very order. And we handle all the customer service and care that goes along with it. Your AP department receives the invoice. Medigi collects payment in full, and then we'll disperse that out to the respective manufacturers. So in summary, that's kind of how that end-to-end order process works.
Well, thank you for explaining that. It's actually fascinating that you're able to provide such level of visibility. So it's you're sort of restating what I think I heard you say. It's really it's purely an electronic facilitation, either through Medigi's own marketplace or maybe through one of your storefronts that you facilitate.
That's right.
When I think about, I mean, you said it yourself. I mean, there are really three partners involved at some level. You've got the drug manufacturer that's selling the product. You've got the buyer, maybe it's a healthcare network, an IDN, and then you have the company that's facilitating that order fulfillment and distribution, which might be a 3PL, for example. So when you think about the types of information flows that move between those entities, what elements of the process are most critical, or how do you manage that type of information? So for example, I'm thinking of accurate inventory levels, right? So if I'm a drug manufacturer and I'm selling product on Medigi's marketplace, I've got to make sure that I have inventory available for sale, and I've got to keep those records up to date and timely and accurate, right? Or when product is sold, how do I true up that inventory to make sure that the next person that comes into the Medigi marketplace knows that what they're placing orders on is actually valid product available for them. So how does that information flow today, and how do you manage that?
Great question, Henry. So our platform, our system actually automatically deducts inventory with each and every sale, right? So if a purchase order goes through today, the manufacturer had 2,000 available in stock, and the order went through for 300, it would be 1,700 remaining, right? So our system will deduct that inventory automatically. However, there's certainly circumstances where there could be a sale in another channel, and that's where EDI comes into play, right? So these back-end integrations with manufacturers are so important, from inventory levels, from purchase orders to ASN files, automatic shipment notifications, and invoicing, right? The invoicing back and forth is actually pretty manual. Even though you can send an email, it can still be manual, right? So that's where, we're working with third parties like TraceLink and the Mint program to streamline that process, either via invoice, ASN, or POs. Where that's automatically done. And then the customer gets the real-time feedback that, the product did arrive on Friday, that ASN went right away without any kind of human delay or potential error. And so we really like to lean into the EDI aspect of it and link up with folks like I said, like TraceLink, that has been in the space for decades, connecting the back ends for commercial organizations at the pharma companies and the dispensers out there.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned that, and thank you. I obviously would love to spend a minute maybe elaborating a bit further on how you're working with TraceLink. You mentioned that digital integration. Can you give us an example of how that's working?
An example of how we can help is with the new DSCSA regulations, right? Customers ask us all the time about is this going to be compliant? And quite frankly, the pedigree doesn't get any cleaner than direct distribution, right? So an example of that is understanding which parties are at play, who is authorized to buy the drug from the manufacturer. Do they have the proper credentials? Is their GLN up to date? Is the DSCSA solutions provider embedded in that purchase order? And so once we've updated the system to ingest the new information required for the regulatory change, it has been just streamlined, right? So at the end of the day, the manufacturer understands, okay, the provider's TraceLink, we're going to route all the serialization data through the TraceLink, back-end portal and exchange. So it really just tracks everything in real time. And it is that end-to-end solution that just doesn't involve the human interaction and delay that we discussed earlier.
Thank you for that. And it's interesting. I mean, you referenced it yourself. I mean, the evolution of TraceLink moving beyond DSCSA to facilitate the digital integration and flow of information between entities like the ASNs, the invoices, and the POs. So I'm glad you brought that up. So, I really want to take a step back. I always let each of our participants spend a few minutes and talk about the future of your organization, Medigi, or maybe even personal or professional developments for yourself. So what's next for the business? What's next for you? Where do you see opportunities for growth?
Well, we've been on this journey for 7 years now. The marketplace has been live for 7 years. It's hard to believe.
Wow.
And it's really serviced the hospital pharmacy space, particularly generic injectables. That seems to be where a lot of the needs, we're needing to be met, either from a supply perspective, procurement perspective, et cetera. And we're excited to be debuting a new offering. It actually, we just had our first 2 launches this February, and it's our SaaS storefronts. So these are white label storefront products really designed for manufacturers that might have a specialty light drug. They could have a biosimilar that's debuting and that's gotten indications and approvals. It could be a cell gene therapy product where they just want a more modernized way for their healthcare providers, the authorized ones, to have access to their inventory and to place these orders. You'd be amazed how manual some of the processes still are out there, with faxing and emailing, and just the ordering process doesn't really match up to the caliber of an innovativeness of the product itself. And so we're really excited to be involved in some of these collaborative research projects with research organizations, hospitals, and the pharma manufacturers to, again, modernize that digital intake and the ordering process. And where the front end is super simple, but the back end has all these connectivity points, whether it's ASN, invoicing, POs, DSCSA compliance, or routing data back and forth. Again, the back end can be complicated, but our goals as, software engineers is to make sure the front end is as simple as possible. So really kind of taking the admiration of like a Shopify type of approach to the pharma landscape, where it can be their own application on their own, digital asset now, xyzpharmadirect.com, where we host that back-end service for them and really just let them operate as they would if they would have brought an engineering team in on their own to develop it. So we're really excited about this new offering. It's been under development for over a year now, and it's great to get the first 2 out the door and launched, and excited to kind of open the door to other product archetypes. Generic serves 90% of the volume, yet about only 10% of the dollars in the supply chain. So we kind of went to where the volume was at first, and now we're kind of transitioning and expanding to those other therapeutic areas and those product archetypes that might fit the bill for direct distribution. So that's where we got our sights set on.
I love it. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that with us, and we wish you the very best in the continued success of Medigi. And I cannot thank you enough for your participation on today's session of Orchestrating Outcomes. And we want to thank all of our listeners for their continued support of the Orchestrating Outcomes series. So stay tuned for future episodes. And Blake, thank you again.
Thank you, Henry. Happy to be here.